The second item of business is our admin. Our attendance is taken simply by the people who are here. The duration of the meeting is set to no longer than 2 hours, which is now exactly 90 minutes. If you would like to see the minutes of the last meeting, you can actually go and watch it. We don't take actual minutes because we record the meetings. Sometimes we publish some notes, but not full minutes. Are there any short announcements from outside of this group? And I would think, Suzanne, you might want to share about what's going on this weekend with What the Health and the timing and where to find that information real quick.
Yeah, so the, oh, here comes Shankar. The directors of What the Health, along with the Dr. Rao and some of the cast members, will be hosting a panel discussion and Q&A from 9 to 11 Pacific Daylight Time in the morning, and then again 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time this coming Saturday as part of a 21-day program for hopefully to inspire people to go vegan and be strong vegan advocates with all sorts of knowledge from, and then Cowspiracy the following Saturday, May 9th, then down to Year Zero the following Saturday, and finally a prayer for compassion on May 23rd. And it's climate.org/21days, 21 with the.
Excellent, thank you. Any other quick announcements? And Shankar, welcome. We literally just got into the admin part of our meeting, and so we're asking if there are any announcements from outside of VCR that need to be made right now. Okay, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 5th at the same time. We anticipate that the meeting after that, the meeting the week of May 11th, will be at a different time and perhaps different date. We don't know that yet because we're exploring that. Okay, we have a number of items for discussion that don't require decision making, but that do require some discussion. And the first discussion item that we wanted to talk about is the Beyond Animal platform. And I think a number of us, I joined and looked around. I haven't done anything more than that, but we wanted to have some discussion based on the fact that Silas had a conversation with the folks at Beyond Animal and the possibility of us moving into that platform. And Silas, maybe you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, see, Basecamp has a couple of things that are not so good, which is the notifications are either you get lots of emails, you get flooded with emails, or you get almost no emails. So it has this on-off type of situation. So a lot of people are complaining to me that they get too many emails from Basecamp. So this is why they don't want to get involved with the activities that are going on. So the second thing is Basecamp has, it's basically designed for a corporate environment. So it doesn't have hierarchies within projects. So it's not like we can have a New Economy group that has multiple sub-projects underneath that are working and reporting to New Economy group. So everything is flattened out at the project level. And so it's difficult for people to see how it is organized. So Claire and Danesh Kothari, who were running Beyond Animal, they invited us to come and look at their platform. And it's a platform which is basically a vegan platform. Everything is vegan there. So it's run by vegans, and they're trying to promote a vegan world. They're actually trying to create the environment for a vegan world. Yeah. And so they showed us some of the capabilities that they have, and it looks very attractive. It's fairly easy to post from there directly to Facebook or Twitter or any of the other social media platforms. So everything is sort of seamlessly linked with the outside world. So we thought that we should at least explore it and then ask Claire and Dinesh if they would create the kind of structures that we want that we don't see in Basecamp. And so they are looking at that possibility. So they're examining what's going on in Basecamp and they're trying to recreate that on their platform. So this is a probably a several months. You can just test it out and see where they get to. So I want to give them the opportunity to host us instead of Basecamp. So our Basecamp license is valid till January of next year. And so if Beyond Animal can replicate what we have on Basecamp and make it better, so why not? We'll switch over.
Right, so I don't know. I know I saw something from Shankar that he had joined.
Right.
I joined, I just started my profile. I just looked around a little bit. I haven't actually done anything yet, but it did seem pretty intuitive, pretty simple to use. What do other people think? And were other people able to get on? And Shankar, I think you actually posted something or did something.
This was like the Facebook when they were launched. I remember using Facebook when they launched. So it's good.
Right.
It's very simple and it is clear. I'm able to focus on the information, and it's not like a crowded. That's another feeling I felt in Basecamp. So I'm just taking a contrast here. So it's kind of like, and I joined one more group to see, but I think that it needs more activity. One more. It's not maybe people are like very selective on the agenda. So I need to learn a little more how things work. It's just my 1 week or 2-3 days observation.
Yeah, we can ask Claire and Dinesh to give a demo to the larger group at Basecamp. Because initially it was just Ray and I who were in the demo. So that you all see what the capabilities are.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And their intention is to be the vegan hub. So that's in a sense building a vegan world online. So it's obviously something that fits into our agenda quite neatly. They referred to it as Facebook for vegans, but it's obviously got a little bit more of a plan of developing towards networking that and conferencing. So having a little bit more of what Basecamp offers, and if it proves to be true, then I think it makes for a place that we can transition to gradually. If it works, there's no reason why we can't start immediately, especially with our public-facing aspects. A lot of our study groups are, working together, and Basecamp kind of serves that purpose well. But once we start looking at outward-facing and task forces that engage the public, that might be a way to, rather than creating a task force in Basecamp, to create one in Beyond Animal and try it out.
Did anyone else have experiences in Beyond Animal this week?
I joined. I thought it was really easy. I liked it.
I joined and I've become friends with several people here, so it's easy enough to get notifications. Although once I got the email notification and signed in, it doesn't lead me right to the page where I could see, hey, here's all my friends. So I was a bit confused about that. I still don't know how that works.
Well, I think it's going to take a few weeks to get a better sense about everything that it can do and whether or not it's going to make sense for Vegan World 2026 to actually move there. But we have time. This isn't something that we have to do in the short run.
And also because they're encouraging a vegan commerce, I just at the end of our meeting, I said, what about a vegan currency? And they kind of laughed like this is an ongoing thing that everybody's got a cryptocurrency and everybody's got, the next new thing. But I think that it makes sense that as we try to develop a system by which we can evaluate that reputation currency, it may be a good place to deploy that and gamify it and get people involved and just start to play. Doesn't have to be a currency that you put all your savings into. It's just something that you start to build your cred, your vegan cred, your frequent vegan points. Or, I mean, there's lots of different models that could be deployed. And we'll learn more about that as we hear more from the Aquarius currency and the, what was the other one called? The
K-Mama app.
The K-Mama app is already active.
Well, it's being worked on right now. There are developers who are really working on the code. And so we are expecting the source code within a week or so. So then we can start playing with it.
Might be off topic, but you mentioned the Seeds app. You posted that in the New Economy group. And I downloaded it. I haven't done anything with it yet. I've just kind of created an account. Would that figure into that at all?
No, it is. I realized that it is convertible. So which means it's still in the old system. So it's convertible. So you can put dollars, buy seeds, and then go from seeds back to dollars.
Oh,
And
okay.
as soon as you can do that, then it becomes, you're stuck in the old system. So.
All right. Anything else about Beyond Animal that we want to talk about tonight? I'm guessing that we want to keep this on our agenda to talk about every week as people explore more and play with more things and have more questions and think about how moving whatever work we're engaged in via Basecamp over there, what that might look like. And so this group, I think, just needs to keep kind of playing with it and coming back with questions, comments, thoughts, questions.
I started to just kind of test it out, titled In World 2026, kind of how deep admin, options are, or their user management. There's not developed there yet, but I've got kind of questions. I think that setting a meeting up with Claire and kind of talking through what they're like, how much work they're willing to put into it. Considering there's a lot on Basecamp that we're able to do that is not available on Beyond Animal yet. I'm just going to keep making a little feature list. And eventually, if we talk to Claire in person, we can kind of run through that and see what they're willing to do.
It may be worth getting Claire and Danesh to do a demo for this group, maybe next week or week after, during the meeting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Invite them to come and give a demo.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, so there are features there that they were showing, which require. You can search for certain windows of time in which certain things were done. So it's fairly flexible. So I think, but we need to see it from them. It's difficult to see it right away from the feature list.
I tried created one event. That next code I was creating as an event, and I also used one of the resources. So I like the formatting options and everything. So you can just copy an image and you can throw pretty much like a Basecamp, and there you have the font and all those hyperlinks. That was a little easier. And once I posted the information all organized in a way, so that's good. And they have the phone version. You have to just save that page to your phone. It becomes an app. And that's very simple concept, like at your home screen. That page becomes like an app. So that is also one of the easy. So we can try. I think more number of people comes, then we can see. Yeah.
One other thing that's come up that has to do with Basecamp and its shortcomings is Carol Mineta was talking about Airtable and how her organization uses that to collect research. and pointed out a few of the shortcomings of Basecamp, that we've got a lot of information that's being put into it. Some of it kind of gets lost in the stream of the campfire, and there really isn't an organizational depth to the docs and files. You can kind of put things into folders, but that's about it. So they use Airtable, which I've never heard of before, but I was going to investigate that to see if it's got some solutions. A lot of these software as service quite often have plugin architecture for things too. So Beyond Animal can also be looking into whether there's functionality that can be, rather than develop and reverse engineer something, just find a way to plug it into their architecture. Similar to, we had the demonstration of Kipwise, and it had an architecture that works with Slack.
So that's a perfect segue, Ray, into our next agenda item, which is Kipwise. So let's talk about, I am not up to speed on Kipwise. So if Benjamin and Suzanne and Ray and Shankar and Sailesh would like to take this conversation and move it forward, since you brought that up, I think this is a perfect time to move into that.
I did some testing on Kipwise. And here, I'm gonna share it. I really liked it. I don't know what you guys thought of the demo. I haven't talked to anyone about it yet. But I added the white paper.
Oh, good.
And
So this is through the Kipwise page, right? They're operating. You are operating through their website rather than through Slack as a plugin, right?
I did have to connect it to a Slack account. So that is like maybe a drawback. I mean, I don't know Slack very well. I don't dislike it, but I enjoyed using Kipwise. I'm just playing around with the folders and stuff. And then they do have this public facing site too. So there was a clear delineation between, you know, being in editing mode and behind the scenes, and then what you want to show publicly.
Yeah, it's kind of like a knowledge base or a frequent questions.
So is that the public facing version of the white paper?
I think, yes. I only have one version of this, actually.
Yeah, I understand. So if you are editing somewhere in the back, the people won't see it. You know, they will only see this public version.
I think we would maybe have to make, well, so I titled it that.
Oh, gotcha.
I think we would have to make a second version. So we have one that we're, you know, a working version and a public version. Right now, I just have it as the same one. Right?
So you can't work on this public one without it updating publicly?
There's more to research, I guess.
Okay, all right.
But in terms of the other white papers and groups working on other things, I think it would work really well for collaboration and.
Angela?
I just want to say something very weird. Does anyone get paranoid about all these sites gathering our information? Does that come into the equation anywhere? I mean,
Paranoid how?
every time you download another app, they want to know everything about you, and they're following you about, and you, so you're sort of reluctant to do this next account with this next thing, and maybe whatever you choose, someone will be reluctant to join it because of that reason.
Right.
I don't know. Is it just me? I get fed up with them asking me everything about me.
Yeah, so everything we do at Climate Healers, I mean, so far I've made everything open source. So it's all public domain, and the people can take it and do whatever they want with it. So it turns out, funnily enough, someone took a white paper and made a documentary out of it. And I didn't even know. So they contacted me and said, can you verify our documentary and make sure it's correct? It's like 30 minutes they were explaining the white paper.
I'm gonna have to look out for that. I haven't seen
Yeah, I
it.
know. I mean, it's part of something much larger. So it's part of a larger documentary. So apparently George Monbiot is narrating it. And so, so it's got a lot, you know, it seems to be part of something much bigger that's going to be pretty good. So I was able to go through the animation that they had done and correct them, and you know, so, but I had no idea this was happening. This is the advantage of making it completely public domain. You know, take and do whatever you want. So someone else is using it.
Where are they based? Are they in the UK?
No, they're in Santa Barbara.
So
So-
Angela, I mean, this whole thing is really interesting. I mean, both open source and Stylish's books are done under a copyleft, which I had never heard of before. And did you make that up, or is that a real thing?
No, I took it from Nipun Mehta. So he has that in his book.
Okay,
Copyleft. Yeah, so
Okay.
I took it from him.
right. So,
So he does service space, yeah. The service space people.
okay. Well, it was fascinating. So I read things. I prefer to read than to watch. Right? And I'm reading his books, and there's this copyleft. And I'm like, what is that? Because I had never heard of it before. And it's like, you can use this in any way. You can do anything you want with it. You can, you know, you can share it. You can plagiarize it. I mean, you can do anything you want with it. And I mean, so part of the fascination for me about Climate Healers is that it's this huge experiment in bringing people together who aren't paid, who have a passion and interest in saving the planet, who have a foundation of veganism, which to most of us includes the ideas of love and trust. And so the work is being presented with that foundation. And that, you know, I mean, that's the 30-second, my version of the 30-second summary about what Climate Healers is all about, but it's really interesting. So I kind of wonder, I think those of us who are tired of all the I don't even know what it is, the paranoia, the oversight, there's so many rules and regulations about everything, are really drawn to, let's just do it and see what happens. It's public transparency and personal privacy, and we'll figure it out as we go, or we won't. I mean, that's the other, you know, I mean, we're hoping we'll figure it out, but if we don't, we don't. I think I probably just went too far, but
if you don't, I have a lot to answer to Kimaya.
yes, and probably a lot of other teenagers at that point. Yeah,
Right.
we'll have a lot to answer for. Right.
Right.
We're going to do our best.
Yeah.
But we also need to, well, I need to not hold the outcome too tightly. We need to say it's going to be what it's going to be. So you asked the question, is it just you? I don't think it's just you. I think lots of us are worried about that. And there's, for me personally, this incredible liberation with not having to worry about that anymore. I'm just saying, we're not gonna. We're choosing not to worry about it. we're just going to put it out there, and we're going to have these conversations, and we're going to put them on YouTube, and people are going to watch and listen, or they're not. And we're going to keep working toward this different kind of world. And I mean, I'd rather spend my time working toward this world, whether it actually happens or not, than not working toward it. I guess that's kind of my bottom line. And so there's a lot of learning, right?
We also have the opportunity of meeting Claire and Dinesh, so we know who we're giving our information to. Basecamp, we don't. It's just some corporation that's developed an app, and they could be selling our information. We don't know that, but a lot of what we come up with, like as far as our research and our aims and goals, I want people to find them. You know. The NSA is listening in. I hope they're learning a few things.
Yeah, or the CIA or the FBI or like what? Yeah, please, if you want to help yourself.
I like to think of some guy in a surveillance van listening to us on headsets and eating a sandwich and rethinking his ham sandwich.
Right. Hopefully
We want to be that effective.
Right. Hopefully he's actually on Zoom and he's seeing the pig's face or the cow's face as he bites into that, and like, oh, maybe not. Okay. Is there more on Kipwise that we want to talk about? Or we just need to keep.
What are the specific features of Kipwise that we need to check all the boxes? That we were discussing a little bit that need to have the public facing document that we can edit at the meantime, and Suzanne's going to check into that further. Is there anything else about it that is on our must-have list? What else does it do? I'm kind of looking at my notes, trying to remember what. Does anybody have any strong feelings about Slack? It's a pretty common tool, so it's nice to have things that are generic enough that when people join, they generally know how it works.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, I was thinking about the chat feature in the Beyond Animal. Like, I don't remember seeing a chat feature there. It's like a message and comments. But it's more like we are having a quick one-on-one chat or something like that. So probably the Slack could be one of the way. And the Slack also, you can chat, I think, one-on-one chat and all those, like similar to Basecamp. I don't know about the video and audio. I'm not familiar. Remember doing that. And the file things are good in Slack. Like you can link each files if they are flowing from like a Google Docs source or some other source. Then you can keep a guidelines document for each of those groups on the top, and you can re-refer them. And if a lot of people put a lot of documents in one of the big chat that going, you can all comes on the top. So you know there are 4 documents dealt in this chat, and it jumps right there to the conversation. Right? And you can tag people too, so you can know these people are involved in this.
Slack is also a charge per user per month, which we are discussing as a possible transition. If we have people that are involved in a task force, then they may migrate from Basecamp to Slack and Kipwise, and therefore we've only got so many people that we have to keep the license in operation.
Now, can we do what we are doing in Kipwise on Google Docs?
That would be worth exploring too, because that came up in the conversation, and Claire said, couldn't you do that in Google Docs? The question is, how you can do a lot. What is the thing that you go, oh, that doesn't work, it's a deal breaker? It's obviously the most used tool, and how it and everybody uses it so much, but do we use it where it's a document that's facing the public? That's usually a little bit different.
Yeah, what I thought was attractive about Kipwise was that you could freeze a version of the document you're working on and make that the public face, and then continue to work on it in the back. So there'll be a lot more comments coming in from people, and then you're editing it, and so then we can update it whenever we think. So it's a little bit like Wiki. It had the functionality of Wiki.
And a wiki isn't necessarily accessible from the public, right? As opposed to Wikipedia, the public can access it and edit, but you're talking about a wiki that, like, how much do we want to be public contribution? We want their comments, we want their feedback and love for things that are good and hate for things that need more work. But how much is the public involved in the actual getting their fingers into it?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Because you compared it once to Quora as well, which is totally public facing, and everybody just gives their opinion, and then everybody kind of rates. This person seems to know what they're talking about.
Right.
So it sounds like there's still a whole bunch of exploration and thinking that we need to do to try and figure out what is the best thing. I don't know enough about these different platforms to know, and it sounds like we need to keep playing with them to try and figure it out for a little bit longer, or maybe a couple months longer to figure it out. And just keep this on the agenda to keep talking about it. And each of us needs to keep going in and playing and doing things. And Suzanne, I hadn't even thought about taking the white paper and uploading it to one of these things. I'm into Slack and I'm into Beyond, but I didn't think about that. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's a bunch of things that we could move over and play with and see what that's like.
We can definitely look into if Google Docs has some kind of version control and public facing document interface. I'm guessing that they have something.
Yeah, I've seen people use, like, for example, especially with this COVID or the common community resources, like the list of restaurants who are vegan, who give like takeout options. They just put one sheet and they make it read only. Like we have done in a couple of our events too, like in the meetings. So they just do it read only. And once you get enough comment, you can chat the site. That's like very specifically document oriented, like if you're, so we can keep it like then they give a hyperlinks from there. You're going to this document, refer this.
Cool.
Was there also concern about having in the records who was making the changes? Because you can go back to earlier versions in Google Docs, I'm pretty sure, but you won't necessarily know whose fingers are, changing the sentences and so forth. Is that important?
Yeah, normally it's important. So because people have to own the comments that they're making.
Angela?
I don't know much about any of these platforms, but my daughter did something in Google Docs recently, specifically so that the people who were sabotaging had to sort of sign in and declare themselves. So yeah, they are owned. These things are owned by the person that adds to them, I think, in Google Docs. Like I say, I don't know much about platforms, but I heard that recently.
Okay.
That's cool.
I was wondering that about when you were talking about Copyloft. You could do anything with the document and, of course, stealing it and putting your name on it, but stealing it, changing it, and keeping your name on it, misrepresenting what you say. Isn't that a problem?
That was my first thought. And when I heard there was a documentary out, I was like, I hope there's something.
Right. Yeah.
They said you still need to earn your climate healer certificate, then you can do it. You have to tell that. Like just follow the channel, that's all. So,
I mean, obviously they cannot misrepresent, and say that I said something that I didn't say, but they can take what I said and say that they said it. That I don't have a problem with that.
Right. And the truth of the matter is anyone can do anything that they want to do.
Right.
I mean, I used to do these workshops about the fact that we live, at least in the US, in an incredibly litigious society, and anyone can sue anyone at any time for anything. So like pretending that you can't do that is silly, because you can. Now, whether you will find lawyers that, well, you can always find someone who will represent you, because you just have to pay them a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, you can do that. Whether you can find, a court that will accept it. I mean, there's all these other things, but the truth is you can do all of that, but not very many people are actually going to even attempt. So this thing about just putting it out there, instead of putting all sorts of blocks in the way to begin with, to just putting it out there and then seeing what happens, it is a fascinating concept. And I'm incredibly hopeful that we are much more ethical than we think we are.
And this is also a testing ground where we're starting to promote these ideas that ideas aren't something that you own.
Right. And that ideas are worth sharing and building on and coming up with something else. I mean, it's the whole, we say all these things about we want lots of diversity. We want lots of people to brainstorm and to come up with things and to try and fail. Well, this is actually putting your ideas where your money is, or, I mean, that idea of letting it go and seeing what someone else is going to do with it. And I think the upside of that is much bigger than the downside.
And the rewards are people who come up with ideas and give them away, as opposed to the people who come up with ideas, have a really clever patent, and live the rest of their lives on a yacht because they came up with something clever once in 1987.
Go watch the Stephen Colbert interview with Bill Gates from a few days ago. It was fascinating. It was fascinating because they were playing with the idea that he's the second coming or this great guy, but it was very clear that it's all on his terms and the way that he wants it to be, and that it was fascinating. It was fascinating to watch.
Google Vandana Shivas and Bill Gates. She has lots of very strong opinions about him.
All right, so this is a fascinating conversation. We're going to keep both Beyond Animal and Kipwise and Slack and these platforms on our agenda to at least have some discussion every week. Some weeks it might be very short, some it might be longer. I encourage each of us to play with it and see what we can come up with. Obviously, there are some people here who are much more technically savvy and some of us who are so not. So we'll get a good sense over the coming weeks about what these platforms can do for us and what they can't. And we'll hold on to those. And it is 9 minutes after. And so we have a break scheduled. I suggest that we take a 5-minute break right now. We come back and talk about the welcome to VCI email that we sent out earlier this week in the onboarding process as the remainder of our discussion. And then we will talk about next week's agenda and any pre-action for the next meeting, which we have the doodle that we want to make sure that everyone does before next meeting. So I'm going to put my phone timer on for 5 minutes. And if we need to run to the restroom, get some more water or tea or whatever it is that we're doing, let's go ahead and do that. And we'll be right back. On the agenda, the first is the welcome to VCI email that we sent out last week and the doodle. And I just wanted to have some, we just wanted to have some general conversation about what we have heard back from people and what, you know, what people thought about that email and the doodle. I checked the doodle earlier today, but not immediately before this meeting.
Do you know how many we have?
So Benjamin, Suzanne, and I wrote the email and sent it out. So I guess we're kind of interested to hear what other people thought about it. We only got one specific response. And I guess, oh, two, there was another one? Besides someone wanting to get off base camp?
Someone wanting to get off base camp.
I think I handled that. It was in the thread on in Basecamp, right?
No, this was in response to the email that I sent. It's Carrie. I've removed her from VCI and the HQ, but need to go find where else she is.
Right, so our intention, we had talked about this a couple of weeks ago about sending out an email to everyone who had signed up for VCI to invite them to describe a little bit more about VCI and to invite them to both be, you know, re-engage or engage for the first time and to let us know what day and time was the best for them to actually attend a meeting. And so we sent that out. And we got one lengthy response from a person named Jason in Australia who gave us a lot of really good ideas about the onboarding process. And we've shared that with Jackie and Jessica and Ray, who are meeting later today to talk about the onboarding process. And we got one response saying, hey, take me off Basecamp altogether. And we have one person, at least earlier today, when I looked at the doodle, there was one person who has not been coming to meetings that did actually respond about times. And then there were several people who have been coming to meetings saying when there were good times to respond. I don't know if anyone else has gotten any response from that or has any comments or thoughts or questions or anything else about that whole process. Suzanne?
I was going to say, and we got Angela here today for the
and Angela is here, yes.
I don't know was it the email that I sent that brought you here, or was it something else?
No, I think it was the email that you sent. Yeah. And the
Excellent.
time, I didn't like to affect your time, but I felt I could cope with an 11 o'clock start.
Well, we would like you to fill out the doodle. I'll paste it here in the chat too for you.
Yes, and that's impressive, Angela, honestly. I mean, to start something at 11 p.m. Is pretty late. So thank you very much. Are there other thoughts, comments, questions about the whole? We're giving people, the timing in the letter was asking people to do the doodle or respond by next Tuesday so that we can figure out what the, you know, what the outcome is before our meeting, and we can talk about it next Tuesday and choose another day and time to meet beginning the following week if that's where if that's the outcome of the doodle. So we're, you know, less than a week into a an almost 2-week process. So we're hoping that there will be some more people. I was hoping that this timing, because of being quarantined, was going to open up some people who hadn't been involved to want to be involved. And then it occurred to me that there may be other people like me that I'm way busier than I expected to be. There's just a lot going on. So perhaps that's also true for lots of other people. All right, well, we will keep this on the agenda and have a fuller discussion next week. And like I said, we forwarded the information that we got from Jason to the people who are working on the onboarding process. And that is our next discussion item, is the onboarding process. And unfortunately, Jackie needed to get off because she was not feeling well. So I'm not sure, Ray, have you even met with Jackie and Jessica yet, or was that scheduled for later today?
Yeah.
It's scheduled
After
for
this.
later. Okay.
She said she was having a headache, so there's a possibility we might not meet. But we'll give it a try.
Okay. So I was kind of expecting that Jackie was going to take this part of the conversation because she and Jessica have been working on it. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Does anyone else have an update on the onboarding process?
Well, a lot of what Jason had to say was about the onboarding process, the experience of becoming a new member in Basecamp. So his input might be very interesting to collect. I invited him to join with Jessica and Jackie and myself, but it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Australia and he's off to work. So that didn't work, but we'll connect at some point. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly his perspective, but obviously a lot of his ideas were, with a team of 15 paid employees, would be able to do a great job in creating an atmosphere that would draw people into Basecamp. And what we've been doing so far, I don't think has been too far wrong. Just let people come in and feel their own enthusiasm and see where it takes them, rather than having something structured for them to land in and decide whether they want to be part of it or not. People come and go, and this is one of the things that Basecamp really isn't designed for. It's designed for a corporation where you onboard somebody maybe once or twice a month, not constantly. It is a little bit perplexing that I've just filled out added 10 more accounts today, and we're about 10 a week. And so many of them want to sign up for VCI, and then we never see them. I don't know what the story is, what they think this is all about, maybe not matching their concepts of collective intelligence. We discussed that a bit last week.
Yeah, that's one of the issues, and I'm really curious about how many of the people who say they want to be involved have actually watched a meeting, because very few of them have actually come to a meeting. So if they're not watching or coming, then I'm not sure. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things about this. So if this organization is going to be built on a fully volunteer capacity, which is different than volunteering for a project in which you are being paid from a full-time job. So when I was working in my field full-time, I worked in the non-governmental sector, and both in terms of the state that I worked in or the national government would have projects that they invited volunteers to work on. And so it might be a 3-month project, it might be a multi-year project. And the people that participated in that were volunteers, because we said, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to help on that task force. I want to help on that project, whatever it might be. But we were all paid by our organizations. So while we volunteered to work on that project, we were still being paid a full-time salary. And our workload may or may not have been adjusted. I mean, some of us just added that to our workload, and some of us actually got our workload adjusted lower so that we had the time to do that thing, whatever it might be. In this example, we are volunteering our time, and I believe the vast majority of us are not working for an organization that is paying us for the time that we are spending at Climate Healers at Vegan World 2026. We're not, which is perfectly okay. But it's different than most other times when there's a volunteer opportunity to work on something of this magnitude. And so it's going to be really fascinating to see. So, you know, as I thought about some of what Jason said, he was talking about you have to be a self-starter to get in and understand Basecamp and really get involved. Well, maybe those are the kind of people we need to have. So maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I keep thinking about the things that he said. We need to be a very welcoming organization, and we need to seriously value diversity. I mean, look at what all of this is about. It's about valuing diversity. And how do we really make that happen when we actually have the makeup that we have, which is people who devote the time that they have available. And when people are in many different time zones, and when the work is crucially, vitally important to the continuation of the planet. I mean, it sounds almost silly to say, it's like it's so big, right? But it's also true. So it's not like, and I don't mean to trivialize this, but showing up at a soup kitchen to make a meal and feed people is so different than what it is that we're attempting to do. That's very physical, very defined, very, you know, you show up for 2 hours or 4 hours once a week or every day or whatever, and you do that. But this is really different than that. And so I think we need to take all of these things about being welcoming and making sure people have an idea about how to do this very seriously. And I also think we need to take very seriously the idea that people need to really want to do this in order to make this work.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of those same things. And Celeste mentioned at the beginning of this meeting that a lot of people don't want the email notifications from Basecamp, and they want to disengage from Basecamp because of that. Of the ones that have their emails removed, how many of them are now fully engaged in Basecamp? I would hazard to say that not many of them are. That's been my experience, that most of the time people complain about the emails, which says more about their, you know, their outlook and their commitment. That was really, you know, excited when they were filling out the form and they checked all the boxes. And then, oh, email, well, that's a deal breaker. Unsubscribe. And I try to explain we're not a newsletter, so that's not really unsubscribe. Do you want your account deleted? And yeah, this isn't going to be a space for everybody. There's some very good activists I know in Toronto that I convinced them to sign up, and they went, yeah, that's not what we thought it was going to be, and it's not really our strength. They're absolutely face-to-face vegan activists, and the idea of doing research seemed like, why are we doing research? We should be out there converting vegans, right? This is not necessarily a bad use of time, but it's a bad use of our time because we know where our strengths are. So some people, you know, are obviously very in the field outreach people as opposed to researchers. And we just have to realize that a lot of people are going to be very passionate about what we're doing, but not really have an awful lot to give. It's a certain mindset. It's a lot of sitting.
Right, and a lot of thinking and being without doing. And the other side of that is, like I said, we still want to be really welcoming and making sure that we're not missing someone who could contribute an enormous amount. We don't want there to be blockages that stop people. But we also aren't, and again, this isn't quite the correct articulation. We don't want to hold people's hands. So finding that balance of how do we welcome people? How do we help people figure out where they can contribute in this? This is not the SAVE movement. So this is not going to a slaughterhouse and bearing witness. This is not rescuing. This isn't DXE and rescuing animals. This is a different sort of a thing. And figuring out how do we invite and welcome and onboard the people that want to do this in a way that encourages them to give the best of themselves to the best of this project is mystifying at this moment for me, trying to figure out what is that balance? What is that? And Silas, maybe, oh, Shankar, please.
I'll go after. That's okay.
I was going to say that the part of the spirit here is the Sacred Lifeline Project, and people have asked me what's happened in the Sacred Lifeline Project, and I say this is it now. We're online. Whereas it was going to be a physical space that people congregate and bring their ideas and work on other people's ideas. So you come to a space and you go, I have an idea, and then people go, okay, well, let's hear it and let's do it. Or you come and you say, I have these particular set of skills, and they say, well, that matches this idea, help this idea, and let's go and do it. So you either bring ideas, you contribute to ideas. So these are very self-starter kind of concepts that most people who are used to being, the next vegan soldier, they don't really, feel like enough is happening, so they tune out, which is fine. I mean, it's really a process of finding the right people to be doing the work, and a lot of them will get engaged once we have more task forces, because going out and facing the public is their forte, and that they enjoy that and they feel more effective when doing it.
Can I ask?
Please.
If we're not the SAVE movement and we're not direct action, what are we? I know.
Good question. So,
I'm looking at you, Silas.
Yeah, so our objective is a vegan world by 2026,
Yeah.
which is defined as at least 50% of the people in certain countries like UK, US, Germany, Austria, and so there's a list of countries, say that they're vegan by 2026. Okay, so that's the minimum that we are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So then we figure out, okay, what is the best way to get there? And we execute on it. So, so we are coming. So we write white papers to educate people. So we wrote a white paper on why animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. Then we had these summits. We had a summit on the coronavirus and what it's doing and how it's going to affect our movement. So we talked to a lot of experts, and based on that, we came up with this 21-day program that would make people, once they go vegan, stick with it. So we are trying to maximize the uptake of the vegan movement and make it more attractive. So we also have another app that we are writing now, which is which gets people good, wholesome vegan food almost for free. So it's called a buy one, gift one app. So we are coming up with these interventions based on, actually in my case, I'm a systems specialist. So I need to listen to other experts and then synthesize what they're saying to come up with a solution that would work, right? So that's what I do as a job. That's my forte. And so this is what happened with the summit. These two initiatives came out of the summit. And now Jamin has taken this food app, this K-Mama app, and he wants to turn it into a banish hunger movement, right? So he's taking it to another level. And I said, go for it, right? So this is how it works. Like someone took our white paper and now made a documentary out of it. I wasn't expecting that. So this is how I think we amplify the movement. That's what we are trying to do. So it's not about showing what is wrong with the current system. It's what is wrong with animal agriculture. That's what DXC is doing. And that's what the SAVE movement is doing. But we are just providing the solution to get out.
Yeah, making something better.
Right.
Yeah. And I just, my gut feeling is that we should welcome everyone. I don't understand not welcoming everyone, because people bounce off of each other. And even if someone's got no skills, they might come up with that one thing which sparks somebody else off thinking.
No, yeah, this is why we are looking at alternatives to Basecamp, so that people don't just come and get bombarded by emails and then jump off. Right. But they have time to synthesize what we are doing and then figure out how they're going to contribute to it. So, because just like the conversation I had with these experts over 21 days, we could be having these conversations with there are lots of experts on Basecamp right now, right? We could be having this kind of conversation on a regular basis. And maybe there'll be more ideas floating around, right? Compared to what we are getting now. Yeah, but this is the way it is right now.
We do need to pay attention to our onboarding process and try to get people to warm up to it. But ultimately, in the end, we have study groups. How many people, I really want to study. I want to do some research. I want to read books. And, a lot of people are much more involved in see the vegan movement as something that's engaging with people. And it will be engaging with people. But the first part is research. It's studying, it's learning the tools like sociocracy. And, I know an awful lot of vegans who aren't going to fit into the nonviolent communication paradigm that we've set up here. There's some pretty in-your-face activists out there. So they're not going to really find this as a comfortable place for them. And even some that have been involved in these kind of situations have gravitated away from it just because it's not for them, that their expectations aren't met. We do want people to be involved, so we try to meet expectations, but that can't be our goal. We're a very different kind of approach, especially what Sailesh has introduced at the outset is a systemic view of how veganism comes about. Rather than that engaging person by person, we're going to get the world to go vegan. I guess we are addressing that viral person by person that the SAVE movement and DXC and other organizations do so well, but they don't have any real sort of vision about how things actually happen. How does the meat industry disappear? We want to study that. We want to study other industries and how we got from riding horses to driving in cars. That was an industry that completely shifted. And what were the symptoms? What were the things that we should be looking for to see that the meat industry is dying? And how do we, move the practitioners to future-proofed industries? What is SAVE Movement's solution for that? They haven't any. They haven't even begun to think about that. I'm involved in the SAVE Movement in Toronto, so I'm connected with their different groups.
In What the Health, I remember that film when it was being made, and I haven't got much money, but I gave it a small donation because I was desperate to see it being made, because here in England, I had been attacked, literally attacked, almost physically, and I am a completely non-violent Quaker, by the way, by the Heart Foundation. You have an equivalent out there. And so that made me realise that these health charities aren't what they seem.
Mhm.
And so I looked into them, and I did find that despite my experiences with the Heart Foundation, that our British Diabetes Research UK was absolutely the worst. It's evil. It promotes a diet with its web page and its authority and its dietitians, which would induce diabetes. And you literally, from one of their meals, it's so high in fat, and so I couldn't help thinking, all they are is a brand and a web page. That's all they are, and dishonesty behind it. The nutrition's not accurate.
Mhm.
Maybe we should make a diabetes health. I know it's a lot of work, but that sort of thing, that would be a positive alternative. An actual heart foundation or a diabetes research charity or a cancer research charity, which is kosher, which is telling the truth. I don't know.
Right. So there are organizations like that, like PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and nutritionfacts.org. I mean, they try to put out well-researched videos and websites and documents. And Dr. McDougall's website is like that. So there are websites that we can link to and show them. So we specialized. So I came from the environment background. So I tried to create a lot of research on environment and put that out there on our website. And so it's available for people to download and see. So both my books are about the environment and about the story that we tell about how we fit into the environment as a species. And so those are also available on the website for free. People can read that. So we are just adding to what is already out there. And but yeah, those organizations are sort of duping the public into getting diabetes and getting heart disease, so that they become customers for them, because then they start donating to them. Right?
When I first got approached by the police from the Heart Foundation, it was quite scary because they lied about me and they tried to get me arrested, and I hadn't done anything. I went home and I researched the Heart Foundation, and a website came up exactly like their website, and it was called the British Heartless Foundation. It was a mirror site. It was very good. But the thing that upsets me the most about diabetes is that I know middle-aged people who have got type 2 diabetes, and they think, well, who are you? What do they say on diabetes research, and they're the authority. They have the web page, So who are you to say? And so they just don't believe me, basically, because I haven't got authority.
Right.
But I know all those other places. But I was sort of mirror one that's specific for an illness. Osteoporosis is another one. They're promoting milk. Breast cancer, promoting milk. I wonder about.
Maybe that's a great idea. We could create a website like that, but there's a lot of information already out there. We can just take it from people and put it together.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Yes Men?
Yes Men? Yeah.
Yeah. They used to do. So what they used to do, they're very funny. You should look them up. What they used to do is they used to put up corporate websites that were mirrors, and then they waited for someone to email them to come to their conference. So they'd pretend to be the World Health Organization or something like that, and then someone would email them, and then they'd go along, and they'd always have absurd names. And they used to, because they were very funny, they made movies. They did the Bhopal thing. Do you remember when Bhopal?
Right. Yeah.
Do you remember that? That was them. That was the Yes Men. They used to go to a charity shop and buy an old suit and have a card. So I've got a card, like that. So they'd have the things, the trappings of making them businessmen, making them official. And then they'd turn up and then they'd give the most ridiculous lectures in which they would be talking about oppressing poor people, killing people, all sorts of horrible things. And people would sit there and go, yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to applaud them. They used to want someone to say, "Hang on a minute, that's not right," you know, but they never did. But they were called the Yes Men. They were very good. They did mirror sites that were just like the official site. You should look, check them out. They're very funny. Yeah.
Well, that was a very interesting idea you had, Angela, that about why is there not a trustworthy Heart and Stroke Foundation or different these foundations that can give people an alternative that isn't completely corrupt. So let's mention PCRM, and that's kind of a very good blanket overall. Here's if you're tired with all of this, here's where you can get the truth about how food is related to your health. You're not going to find it in any of these places because they're going to have their mandate to keep people eating meat, unfortunately.
I suppose I'm coming from it from an English point of view, because it is just a link to a web page in another country. And although it's very efficient, over here we have the Heart Foundation running up and down, collecting money in every high street. You know, they're everywhere. Right. Everywhere, and they will get on the BBC and they will get on official channels. It feels hopeless sometimes to argue with them.
To undermine the authority that everybody believes in the foundations because they seem to be so legitimate, that could be an initiative. This is the place where to bring ideas like that and get people involved in it and decide is this one of the things that we need to do in order to get a vegan world by 2026. Start to chip at the armor of these places, and What the Health obviously does that to a large degree. And I was very inspired by Cowspiracy, and after I saw Cowspiracy, I went and became one of Al Gore's presenters of his slideshow, his climate slideshow, and we disrupted him in the training process. But I remained. I graduated and I gave my presentation. I gave Al about half of the time, and then I made the rest of the presentation extremely vegan and filled in all the details that he was missing, which he still misses to this day. And I just got an email from Climate Reality. I haven't read the entire contents yet, but it seems like they're really panicked over that Michael Moore documentary.
Oh, good.
And they may be changing their tune, or they may be feeling out their volunteer public to see how much they're affected by it. So it could be a turning point, but
I only saw
spent 4 years of thinking it's a turning point. Sorry?
I saw half of that documentary. When they started talking about population, I couldn't bear it because I hear so much stuff about population. So was it a good documentary? Do you believe it? I've heard both sides, people saying from both sides. I don't know. I didn't like it when they started talking about population because I feel the human population is going to be stable at 10 billion. And we need to have good sanitation worldwide and so that people choose to not have large families. Not what often happens over here is white middle class people decide that those Africans and those Indians shouldn't be having babies, whereas they've got loads. You know, it's just.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So I'm going to suggest. So this is a fascinating conversation and a much bigger conversation than I think we have time for this evening, as our meeting is scheduled to end in 10 minutes. But what I'd like to do, since our next agenda item is to plan for our agenda next week and to have a conversation about the Michael Moore film at next week's meeting, I think might not be a bad idea. If people are interested in doing that, would we like to set aside 15 or 20 minutes to have a conversation about the documentary and what people are saying and what we think about that next week?
That's a good idea, yeah.
Okay, all right. We will Planet of the Humans.
One thing that's interesting is that there's somebody I know that's doing a documentary very similar to it that hasn't been released yet, an independent documentary. And I'm hoping it hasn't stolen her thunder and that it's actually paving the way for it to find its audience. But Julia Barnes is the director of Sea of Life. And her next documentary is called Bright Green Lies. And she is joining us at the New Economy group tomorrow to talk about her research in the documentary, which is yet to be released. So she might have some interest in joining that conversation next week. So I'll see if I'll bring it up at the meeting.
Yeah, that would be fascinating because the pushback against that film is pretty serious, and it's hard to know what to believe and what not to believe. So let's add that to the agenda. And we already have decided to keep the Beyond Animal and the Kipwise conversation going. And next week we need to decide what we're doing about our timing and what we have received based on the email that we sent out. And then hopefully Jackie will be feeling better, and you and Jackie and Jessica will have met by then to discuss the onboarding process. So it seems to me that we have an agenda for next week fully done. The pre-action for the next meeting is to make sure that we all go onto the doodle and fill in the times that we are available. Are there any other items that we need to add to the agenda for next week, or pre-actions that we need to take before next meeting? Okay, beautiful. Then we will get that agenda out quite quickly because we know what it's going to be. And then I'd like to ask for a checkout, which is what we are leaving the meeting with. What is our sense? What is our feeling? What are we exiting this time that we've been together with? And Shankar, can we start with you tonight?
Thank you, Anne. Yeah. I just want to say that I got a chance to submit that public comments, and there's one more person also joined. And the good thing is the comment that I posted appears on the front, so kind of like a keyword search. And I went through a very detailed, and I covered all the industry. Like I spent through, like, for example, vegan documentary. I said, go on for vegan documentary.
Excellent.
But, I know it's all once they grant only, but the request has been made. So every industry I went, and whatever things that can go vegan, leather, shoes, or from the apparel, or anything, like any nook and corners, whatever I have seen vegan in my life, in all those stores, or plant-based, doctors, dietitians, like everything I have covered. And so kind of like a brief comment and also detailed comment. So let's see how it goes. Like, I'm so curious how they're going to react, or what is going to be the response that will help us to prepare for the next phase. So thank you, everyone. And it was amazing. And like, honestly, I wouldn't have done without the group or that interaction. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very cool. Benjamin and Suzanne?
Sure. Well, what I'm leaving with is actually in reaction to Shankar's comment right there. I'm really excited to take this first experiment and, this, thinking of our 6-year timeline. This falls, in another 4 years, we do it again, right? So just to keep plotting our map of the 6 years, that's what I'm leaving with right now.
Excellent.
I'm just grateful for all of you and all of the work that we're getting to work on here in this meeting and on Vegan World 2026.
And to meet you, Angela.
Yep.
It's really nice to meet you.
All right, Ray?
feeling very excited about how all the pieces are fitting together. We've been talking about technical pieces and how they might mesh with what we are trying to do as human beings. And we're the most complex software of all. And I feel like we're working out the bugs.
Excellent. Silas?
I'm feeling grateful for all of you. Thank you for being here.
Angela?
It's really nice to have met you all.
All right, we're very glad that you were here, and we certainly invite you and welcome you to every meeting that we have. And we encourage you to fill out the doodle to let us know when a better time might be, if there's a better time for you. And we'll figure out whether or not that works for more people. And I am also feeling grateful. These means that, our traction, we are getting our traction. We are starting to do the things that we have set out to do, and I'm looking forward to next week. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And Angela,